Give yourselves a hand for these 2 days of work. I cannot wait to hear what you've been talking about. We are going to have report outs from each of the groups. We actually have 14 groups this morning. We're going to hear first from Reimagining Downtown. You will be followed by neighborhood investment, and those three that will report out for neighborhood investment, we're asking you to come and sit at this table right down front, so you'll be ready to rock and roll. Okay, so we will receive our three presenters. They have up to 5 minutes to present on Reimagining Downtown. We're going to start with you, Kurt.
Yeehaw! Thank you, ma'am. I just want to begin by saying that this is amazing. This is an amazing thing. It's powerful. When you get this many people together and this many people of backgrounds, we've all come from different places, and until we know each other and understand each other, I don't think we can really come together and fix things. In our group, we had quite a diverse group of people from people that have lived here all their lives to people that have just recently moved here, people that have been here 10, 15 years. So the perspective on Peoria was really unique and interesting to me, because I grew up here my whole life, other than the 25 years I spent in the Marine Corps. And when I moved back here after retiring from the Marine Corps, Peoria didn't look the same. And that's why I'm here today, is because I want to help this city, because I love this city. I'm so proud to be from this area. And what we saw with Reimagining Downtown, the most serious issues was perception of downtown. If you go and talk to people throughout the Tri-County area that aren't really here and work here and are here on a daily basis, when they hear the word Peoria, they don't want to, I'm not going there. It's not safe. Well, those of us that are here know that it is safe. So the perception of Peoria needs to be strengthened, of what we really have here. Some of the barriers that we discussed were transportation, parking issues, and being able to walk to resources. When you talk about transportation, obviously not everybody has a vehicle. Parking. The meters that are out there, believe it or not, actually have a negative effect on some people coming downtown, because we don't all have change in our pockets anymore, and we think we're going to get a ticket. So that causes people to actually not stop and park. I don't have any change. I can't go there now, so I'm not going to frequent this business because I would have stopped here today, and that's just one small example. Being inclusive as far as the resources and housing. We can't price the housing out of reach for everybody in this city. We have to have basically multi-level affordability within the same area in order to get people to come together and create those communities again. The nature and strengths to deal with. Well, what we thought was just this here is important. What we're doing here, being the loudest voice, that perception that's out there. Where does perception come from? It comes from the way we were socialized, the way we were raised, the way we were taught. And we know that those are definitely not always accurate, those things. So, some things we talked about with combating those things. One of the common things that were brought up, and it was actually a person who's in this room, was our police chief. The example that he sets is absolutely inspiring and amazing at the grassroots level. If all of us were at that grassroots level of getting out in the community and continuing this voice that we start here, when we leave the door, we can't let it stop here. We have to be a positive voice and an influence and inspire people. That's the key, is to inspire. Because when I inspire you, that means I don't want to when I inspire you, that means that you want to be the best you could possibly be, and then you don't want to disappoint the person that's inspiring to you. 1 minute. All right. So with that, we all need to be out there, and don't let it end here. The major theme, we all really wanted the same thing, even though we didn't know it. People from different backgrounds, different races, ethnicities, religions, whatever it is, at the end of the day, we all are striving for the same thing, which is why we have to become more inclusive instead of divisive. It's not us versus them, it's we. Our strengths are the people and the desire to do this. The weaknesses, perception, opportunities that we have, don't let this stop here, and take action. And the threats that we see to accomplishing all this is, it's sad to say, but it comes down to money and resources. When we have so much money allocated to different things and we can't put it towards the important things, that's a challenge. And it's not just the mayor's responsibility and the city council's responsibility. It's everyone in the city's responsibility to make sure that we are not being divisive and we are good stewards of the city of Peoria.
Thank you, Kurt. Fantastic. Our next presenter will be Julie, Reimagining Downtown.
Like the first group that just spoke, we felt one of the most serious issues facing Peoria when it comes to our downtown is perception. Perception regarding safety. People thinking there's nothing to do, that it's difficult to get around, and that there's nowhere to park. And none of those things are true. As someone who's a transplant to Peoria from the East Coast, I can't even imagine. Parking is like plentiful, and it's easy to get around here. But we also thought that one other serious issue is civic activity, and we're not defining that in terms of philanthropy, because we think this is a very philanthropic city. I've lived a lot of places, and the philanthropy is amazing. But having our businesses realize that maybe investing in different events or activities, such as like ice skating downtown or something like that, they may not make money, they may not even break even on that, but it makes this a better place for all of us, for their employees and for the rest of the community. We felt that the nature of these issues is that we have a lot of vacant storefronts downtown. We talked about the excitement about the two-way streets, because when you look at that stretch of Adams Street and you're looking from Casa de Art to like Zion and it's two ways, you see businesses that are thriving on both sides of the road. And we're hopeful that as those roads become two-way, that we will start to see businesses come back to both sides of the road. We talked about needing more functionality for people to navigate. Someone in our group talked about having a stroller for twins and being able to, just get around downtown. And we talked about walkability, and we talked about the importance of how that looks you often see individuals that are walking from the Gateway building down to Kelleher's because it's visually appealing. But there are other parts of our downtown that you probably wouldn't walk from one to another, even though it's still a walkable distance. So making those thoroughfares where people could walk more visually appealing. We felt that our greatest strengths is that we have a thriving arts community, and you can see that throughout parts of our city. We have an amazing history that we can tell, and like the first group said, it's just the pride of the people who want to live here and people who want to make this a better place. Like I said earlier, this is a very philanthropic community, and there's lots of thriving nonprofits that are out there helping to improve the lives of individuals in this community. The major themes that we talked about were communication, marketing, letting people know about all the great things that downtown has to offer. We talked about walkability, accessibility, inclusion, affordability. And we talked about taking a holistic 24-hour vision for downtown Peoria, that things don't shut down at 2 p.m. or at 5 p.m. when business is over, but having it be a vibrant and thriving area around the clock, someplace that people would like to come. And the ideas that we thought were most promising for making improvements in this area are making it more visually attractive, functional for those individuals to get around, to be respectful of history, to be environmentally friendly, to make sure that individuals know that it is safe to come downtown, and just inclusion and respect as well. Thank you so much.
Great job, Julie. Thank you. Next, we have Derek, Reimagining Downtown.
All right. So when I travel around or people come in, they say, "Where are you from?" I always say, "Peoria. It's got every vowel but you." You get it? Think about it now. Think about it. Peoria's got every vowel but you. And you know what? Something that is on our topic and discussion with our group over and over again was honestly the vowel you. Was that you are the opportunity, you are the strength, and you can also be the alternative. It's mindset, it's perception. We've said it, the last two groups have said it, and we've had a lot of conversation about perception in our group, so allow me to get into the weeds. There are multiple, what was the term? Can you turn that around for me, please? There are multiple flagship amenities in downtown Peoria. That means the bridge lit up at night is amazing. Dozer Park and what that brings to downtown is phenomenal. We have amazing business owners doing great things right here in downtown. We have the Riverfront Museum. I can go on and on and on. We also have programs that are currently in the works that a lot of people don't know about because we like to work on our silos, which is a threat and a weakness. But we have amazing things going on, like the Madison Theater Project. We have a jewel of an opportunity sitting with the Scottish Rite Cathedral, right? The Phoenix Development Center is doing amazing work working with Carle Hospital to get housing in the old Methodist College, and to get more housing on one full block, an entire block of downtown Peoria dedicated to housing for homeless and reentry projects. We have amazing opportunity, but they're all siloed and they're all separated. People come here and they say the other sometimes vowel, why? Why can't I walk there? Why can't I get access to the river? Why can't I do this? Why can't I do that? And the reality is it's all perception. It is walkable. You can walk from Carle Hospital down to Kelleher's. But what's getting in your way? Traffic. People are speeding. It's not safe to cross the roads. And by the way, that's not a police issue, that's an infrastructure issue. And it's easy to fix. I was in another conversation with a few people that was at Neighborhood House, and the name of the conference is escaping me, but we were talking about the infrastructure of Peoria and how to make it more pedestrian friendly and walkability and create more walkability for people. And Andre Allen and I got in a conversation in our discussion about flowers. And I'm going to use this little message here. Sometimes it's annoying to talk about flowers because we got bigger problems, we got bigger concerns, but sometimes it's about the flowers. We have got to have small wins. We have got to have small wins, and we got to get have the dominoes start falling so people can see that change can happen. And when change starts to happen, people start buying in and they start showing up to the table. So we got to start somewhere, which I want to talk about the big, ugly thing that's getting in the way, and that is red tape. There's so much red tape. There's red tape out there because that's out of our hands. It's bureaucratic, it's state, it's federal, it's a reality. So how do we recognize that red tape and cross it together? Not this group of people, not that group of people, but together as a community. But then there's also red tape that was created right here in our city in order to deter people from growing. It's old red tape, put back in the 40s, 50s, 60s. And I gotta ask, why can't we cut that red tape? Why can't we cut that red tape to start acknowledging growth for our populations of color, for our populations that it was created to stop? So with that, our big thing that we talked about in our group was, we gotta have the conversations and bring people to the table. We have amazing business owners and amazing property owners of downtown. We also have the alternative. But if we don't get people to the table, even if it's just 35, 40, 50% of the individuals, with our councilmen and women, and with our legislators, and have a third-party person come in to sit at the table to say, what is getting in the way of your growth? Why won't you sell your building? Why won't you develop here? Why won't you listen and cut this red tape that has been put in place 60 plus years ago and is putting a stop to growth in Peoria? We got to get to the table with our business owners for more opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Will everyone who participated in Reimagining Downtown please stand? Thank you for your good work. Great work. Thank you very much. Next, we will hear from Neighborhood Investment. Please. And I would ask that those reporters for business support, attraction, and retention to join the front table, please. Cue up. Okay, we have Bridget.
Hello. I was with Group 1, an amazing group. We had a lot of diversity, a lot of good input and different perspectives. Just kind of going through the issues. I will set a timer on myself because, you know, that's important. Okay, so some of the issues we discussed, I think it kind of boiled down to a couple things, one of which was just kind of like the internal divisions within the city. When we were like having our conversations, we noticed that we were talking about different parts of Peoria, either by zip code or by district. And, you know, that creates the perception that we're not really like one, you know, unified city. We're more of just different groups. With that were some other issues that we also identified, including the perception and, you know, the perception and in many cases the reality that expansion can be mutually exclusive with neighborhood improvement, especially with the older communities or the older neighborhoods. One of the phrases that came out from that was under-resourced investment. Another issue that we found was a lack of, you know, in some cases, community involvement and involving people whom will be affected by changes. We also discussed the importance of the city needing to show it cares by investing in the community, and by doing so, that will encourage community members in those neighborhoods to care as well and starting investing as well themselves. We also talked about crime in neighborhoods affecting everyone. It's not just limited to one area, but crime anywhere affects the entire city. In terms of some of the strengths that we have for dealing with these issues, that include, I think one of the biggest things we talked about was neighborhoods that have strong neighborhood organizations, and that these can be really powerful tools for mobilizing people, for disseminating information, for getting resources, and also getting investment from the city. We also talked about Peoria being a community of doers, and the fact that we're here, we can make stuff happen, and talking about how to mobilize that strength to get things done in our neighborhoods. And we also mentioned that there are lots of community-based organizations, that there's lots of philanthropy, as mentioned before, and that once we start pooling some of those organizations, we have a lot to work with. In terms of promising improvements, some of the things that we identified are some existing programs, including One Stop, Peoria Cares, the police department's Walk and Talk program. We also floated the idea of connecting neighborhood organizations through meetup activities, where different neighborhood organizations can come together, share resources, have kind of like a party or a celebration, some ways just to bring attention to these organizations, hopefully with the intention of also driving some membership with those. We also talked about the idea of, when building new communities, to add communal areas into those developments. Instead of making it where you just pull into your garage and you don't see or talk to anybody in your neighborhood for the rest of the day, having places where people can go and share information, talk, share resources, those kinds of things, just to basically start promoting more neighborly behavior. And then in terms of what it would make, or what it would take to make these things a reality, we discussed primarily volunteership. Making sure that we're communicating clearly with volunteers, involving and engaging everyone in the community when possible. We also talked about volunteer training, making sure that volunteers are well equipped to do good in the neighborhoods. And also giving employers incentives to give their employees time to volunteer in their neighborhoods. We also talked a little bit about the Night Out Against Crime organization with the police department as a way also to continue bringing together neighborhoods and helping people meet their neighbors. A couple other things, one other thing was just reinforcing the idea that we are all one big community. We're not separate sub-cities within Peoria. We really are one unified group, and it's important to act that way. So just as a final note, I am very new here. We moved here about 8 months ago. I know that there's been a lot of perception about Peoria. I'm here to tell you that's not true. I really love this city. My husband and I love this city. It's a great community, and you've got great stuff going here. Thank you.
Great job. Thank you, Bridget. And next we have Taguana.
Good morning. So the three things that we saw that were facing our issues in our neighborhoods are affordable housing, decent affordable housing with an ownership focus. We also looked at safety, and one of the other things we talked about was school enhancement with more emphasis on building up our parents, so that when we build up our parents, we can also move into building up the neighborhoods. The other thing that kept coming up is mindset shift, and I've heard that from several different speakers already. We have to start changing the mindset of the people we're working with. Some of our greatest strengths is that we already have what we need in Peoria. If you don't realize it, we have investment. We have Cure Violence going on. We've got the Walk and Talks going on. We have all of these resources that we are already doing. However, we just need to scale it up and have more commitment from people that are in this room. So good job. We also wanted to look at some of the major themes that came out was decent, affordable housing. We didn't just talk about on the 61605, but everywhere. Inclusionary zoning, so that it's not just one group of concentrated people all on top of each other, and then we're wondering why there's issues in our neighborhood, but having inclusionary practices to place these neighborhoods and make them vibrant so that it does have the diversity. We also talked about making sure the safety with the major concerns is addressed, which we are doing at this time, and also focusing on our workforce, our trades, getting our students and our families what they need in those areas so that they need to have some business development. We've got Cradle to Career with ICC that's going out and walking and talking to people to find out what they need. Not us looking as a fishbowl saying what we think they need, but knowing what they absolutely need in their neighborhood. Number 4, we saw that the promise that we can do in our neighborhoods is that if we can focus on working and developing our workforce, that's going to better develop our neighborhoods. Once we have some pride in what they can do, not just working menial jobs, but having them working jobs that have a sustainable life. Focusing on the pride of the arts. We had an artist in our group, I love her to death, and what we talked about yesterday, what was brought up by Ms. Peterson, is that when we focus on arts and not looking at the blight in our neighborhoods, but seeing a nice mural when you go down the street, that's going to increase pride in our neighborhoods and also build up the stock that we also have in those areas. And then lastly, what can turn it into reality is more commitment from everybody here. We can't just show up one time, but we've got to be committed to changing the neighborhoods, committed to actually participating in what we say that we believe in. Peoria is a great place. We have everything we need already here, but we've got to stay committed to the vision to make Peoria better. The other thing we wanted to look at is support for micro-developing housing and stores. So we have a lot of places that have open and abandoned buildings, but perhaps we need to give micro loans or micro financing to other people to build up those areas. Let's not focus on the big developers, but we've got business owners right here that are willing to do that. And lastly, we have to channel and get support for local businesses and make sure that we work together to make Peoria great.
Great job. Great job. Thank you, Taguana. And next we have Pastor Devereux Hubbard.
Well, in our group, some of the serious issues that we're facing our neighborhoods, you've already heard. Many of them had to do with infrastructure issues, making our neighborhoods walkable, so sidewalks, lighting, very important within our neighborhoods, as well as moving back to allowing our schools to be at the center of the neighborhood, at the center of the community. So those were some of the serious issues. What do we see as far as our greatest strengths? We saw having new leadership with fresh eyes. We have a number of new leaders who have fresh eyes to bring in looking at problems and making suggestions for solutions as well. We appreciate the communication that's been taking place within our community and the technology that we are leveraging technology to get all of us in the room and others in the room, as well as the diversity of the people in the room and collaboration, which has come, I believe, with great intentionality. As we talked about ideas for making improvements within our area, one of the primary things we talked about was shaping or reshaping our narrative as a community. Talked about potentially developing a vision for Peoria, and Peoria having its own values that are shared, that are communicated throughout our communities and throughout the various entities, organizations, corporations, all of that live and work within our community. Then we thought it would be great for us to have a holistic approach as we think about neighborhood investment. So the holistic approach says we have maybe 5 or 6 things that we're looking at. We're looking at infrastructure. We're looking at the psychology of the people within the neighborhood. We're looking at the educational system. And as we go through each of those templates, we're assessing each neighborhood by neighborhood, talking to the people within the neighborhood to see in this particular area of addressing the psyche of people, what do we need to offer, what do we need to do to improve your neighborhood and invest in your neighborhood. So really taking a holistic approach and utilizing that neighborhood by neighborhood to bring about some change. Of course, dealing with neighborhood infrastructure again, as well as shifting our focus to make sure that we prioritize our schools. Really talked about our schools being a place where children can hang out and spend time, not just when they're in school, but even after school, for them to be able to have access to school grounds and that be a place where the neighborhood and people within the neighborhood gather. What might it take to turn these ideas into reality? It's going to take some determination. It's going to take a whole lot of optimism so that we do away with this notion that it can't happen in Peoria, but we buy into the idea that it will play in Peoria. So we make that commitment. It's going to take resilience. This is not going to be an easy task. So we have to be in it for the long haul. We don't want this to be another thing that we put in print and then we put on a shelf 2 years later, but something that we commit to and we maintain our commitment even if the players change. Our commitment remains the same. And then finally, we think it's going to take community pride. As has already been stated, we have an amazing community with amazing people in it. Our greatest asset in our community are the people in the community. So let's celebrate the people in our community and make this place what we really believe it can be. Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor Hubbard. Everybody that participated in neighborhood investment, please stand. Thank you for your great work. May we have business support come up? And if infrastructure improvement representatives, please come down front. All right, Chantel, just keep standing. You can come right up here. Chantel.
Good almost afternoon, everyone. So I had a wonderful group, a diverse group of business owners, people who work with various organizations in our city, and many other wonderful people. And so we had a very lengthy conversation, as we all had. And we talked about a lot of topics, a lot of things, and I will try to touch on as many of them as I can. But obviously, there's a through line across all of these conversations, across all of the things we're hearing now about safety and our community, our strong community that we have, and all of these wonderful things that I think we can all see. So that will also be repeated in some of our ideas as well. So we talked a little bit about larger businesses and how to attract and recruit those and what that looks like. But for the most part, we really focused on small and mid-sized businesses and what that looks like here in Peoria and how we can wrap around them, because they are really, really important to have a diverse local economy. So some of the most serious issues we saw was that we have many, many resources available, wonderful organizations all across the city. But there is a lack of marketing for those resources, as well as a lack of time on the part of business owners to be able to explore and or take advantage of those resources. We also saw that businesses tend to seek help or intervention too late in the process before there's really anything that can be done. And so figuring out how we can actually meet them earlier on in their struggle so that they can get that help that they need. We saw a need to improve our sense of place through placemaking efforts, especially on a neighborhood and corridor level, so that we can actually drive the foot traffic to those local businesses. We also talked about public safety concerns, both for business owners and their customers alike. That is a really, really big issue that we kept hearing about from business owners, as well as the people who actually frequent those businesses and the challenges that poses. We also talked about the nature of issues, some of the strengths that we have in solving these problems. We have a really, really, really strong sense of community. Again, that's something I heard up here nonstop. Peorians show up and they show out for the community, for the people in their community, for the businesses they want to support. And that's something that's part of the reason we came here. I moved here to begin with, and I think that's one of the strongest assets we have for our businesses as well. We have many organizations, as I mentioned, serving our business community, so that's a strength that we have. We have so many resources out there. And then we also have a lot of commercial spaces available for businesses and a plethora of residential spaces available for prospective customers and employees for those businesses as well. So those are all strengths that we already have. Some major themes and concerns that we saw was the need for expanded outreach for business services, as well as volunteerism. So how can people actually get involved to impact those businesses or impact the city? Making those more clear. There's a lack of funding for business owners and or knowledge of available funding. Obviously, it costs money to start a business and to maintain that business, but again, there's so many resources out there, but a lot of times businesses have no idea that those resources are even there. And then the organizations who have access to those resources are also struggling with how to actually connect those businesses with these said resources. And we also need to coordinate the services and organizations to bolster and support our small business community. So as I mentioned, we have a lot of wonderful organizations. I could name off probably 10 off the top of my head at least. But there isn't always a consolidated effort with those organizations. They aren't always connected. Sometimes people would feel like they're getting the runaround or not know where to go. I know that there are so many efforts, especially right now, on consolidating efforts and actually creating a holistic approach, a holistic wraparound, so that businesses can be connected to one organization or another. They can refer each other, and that's fantastic, but I think we need to continue to bolster that and see how that impacts our future business development. Ideas for improvement. We need to invest, we talked a lot about this actually, investing in our youth and our local school system to build a robust workforce for our business owners to employ, as well as producing homegrown entrepreneurs here. There are many events. One of the things that I was hoping to mention was Career Spark, which I think is hosted here as well. There's so many ways for businesses, business owners, professionals to get involved, to pour into our youth. Investing in our youth impacts crime, it impacts our workforce development, it impacts the health of our cities, it impacts every single aspect of our city. And so we have to be able to build our cities for children if we want our cities to work for anyone at all. We also talked about the importance of guiding businesses or providing guidance for businesses with branding and marketing and location services. A lot of times business owners don't know where to start. Things like grants are also wonderful, but sometimes business owners don't know necessarily what they need to do with that. So providing that guidance to kind of inform those decision-making, those decisions. We also need proactive outreach to business owners so that they have the knowledge to proactively reach out for assistance and guidance when they run into those problems, as I mentioned before. And then the last thing that was mentioned is the need to, or the question about follow-through and actionable items. How do we maintain accountability? How do we provide tangible outlets for Peorians to actually get involved and create the change that they want to see? So I think that's really important for everyone at my group, or in my group, and I think that's really important for everyone here to see as well. How do we actually see this implemented? How do we get involved to actually implement that as well? Thanks.
Thank you, Chantel. Next we have Yvonne.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you to my group and to all of us for this wonderful endeavor. It gives me great hope and encouragement for our community to hear how much commonality there has been. Even though we were all in breakout rooms, many of these concepts have resonated across, and that's a wonderful thing, because when we can stand on common ground, we can move forward and faster together. Our most serious issues facing Peoria when it comes to business support, attraction, and retention, we narrowed it down to 3. Number 1, having a common place to address all business issues. Number 2, promoting pride in our city and keeping it clean. And number 3, as has resonated quite a bit today, downtown mixed-use places to work and live and walkability throughout the downtown area. The nature of these issues and our greatest strengths in dealing with them when it comes to having a common place to address all issues, we just heard again, a lot of new business owners don't know what they don't know. And to be able to pick up the phone or make a Google search and to be able to find a place where you can get your questions answered and find out the questions to things you may not have thought to ask yet would be really important. Everything from marketing, everything from how to fill out my tax forms, everything to deciding whether or not I should open a second location. Having a resource where they could go and have those questions addressed would be critically important to them. When it comes to promoting pride in our community, we're all encouraged by Choose Greater Peoria initiatives. We know these initiatives have happened cyclically over time, and sometimes when something bad happens in our community, and I use bad in quotes because every community goes through ups and downs, I remembered there was a campaign called Taking Pride in Peoria that I was involved in some 25 years ago, and then CAT UAW went on strike, and the campaign shut down immediately. It doesn't mean we can't have pride in our community when bad things happen. So initiatives to keep promoting the great things that are going on here should continue no matter what's going on here. And then the third, downtown mixed use and walkability. We came to the conclusion that it really is a symbiotic relationship. We don't know which comes first, the chicken or the egg, and that is high residency and people then needing shops and services to accommodate the fact that they live and live downtown, or whether or not those amenities need to come first and then people will choose to live there because there are so many great amenities. We're hoping that they can happen continuously and together. What major themes or shared concerns came up during this discussion? Community education was a huge piece in two phases. One, marketing efforts by the city. A lot of folks talked about a lot of things that not everybody in the group was aware of. And someone asked very poignantly, how are you getting your information? How could we have told you that this is what was going on? And the answer is quite varied. As we all know, the marketing platform has changed considerably. No longer is it just TV, radio, newspaper. Now we have social media, we have digital platforms. There are so many ways to get information. We think there needs to be a concerted effort of making sure those avenues are all being explored in order to give people information. But concurrently with that, we also agree that there is a shared responsibility amongst Peoria residents to take the initiative to find out what things it is that they seek. So when someone says, well, there's nothing to do on the weekend, what would you like to have done on the weekend? And go search and see if it's actually happening. We find often that we poo-poo something because we don't think it's here, when it actually really is here and we don't know. And part of that would include utilizing our community partners to get that information out as well. Another big piece, supporting small businesses. We heard resonating around the room quite a bit that small businesses just don't feel like they get the support. Once they're up and running, then what happens? Is there somebody who can help make sure that I'm doing the things that I want to do, that I'm investing in infrastructure, that I'm investing in people? Am I investing in ways that are going to move my business forward? Those questions have to be answered somewhere. And sometimes when you're an entrepreneur and you just want to do the thing that you're passionate about, you're not quite sure about all of the rest. Number 4, what areas seem promising for making improvements in this area? Here's where we got down to the nitty-gritty, and I was really enthused by this part. For us, we suggest creating a business 411, if you will. We know the success of 911. Here locally, we now know the success of 211. Could there be a business 411? So whether you're in a larger industry or a small one, pick up the phone, and that 411 representative will give you access to all of the questions that you have asked. They may not have all the answers, but they'll be able to direct you to the sources that will have that information for you. We understand that a lot of us were encouraged by the fact that SCORE and the EDC and a lot of those offices used to be located on that platform where Joe's Crab Shack was, that no longer is. We understand that many of them are coming together again in Distillery Labs, which is great. We also encourage the inclusion of a specific effort or venue toward promoting small business, because again, the bigger industries, they have the nuts and bolts taken care of. They know how to do the taxes, they know how to do the hiring, they have the HR people. Small businesses don't have access to those kind of things oftentimes starting out. Number 2, partnering with local media and community organizations to share information. In this one, and this is our big one, so I'll go fast, I got 30 seconds. In this one, our local media outlets are often starved for local information, which is why you see all those stories about other communities around the country, and you go, why are we airing that? If we could start partnering with those organizations, I don't know if any of them are here today, but I think it would be welcomed as a former member of the media to say on Mondays, every day, we're going to give you a Peoria City Beautiful report. It could be anything from the types of things you can throw away in the garbage this week. No, you can't put your lazy boy out there. We're not going to pick that up. Or here's what program's going on if you need help paying your Ameren bill, or here's whatever the situation may be. If you give people a designated time and place where they can get information about the city, they'll use that time and place as a resource. It could be in the paper on the same day. It could be shared across all of our social media outlets on the same day. so that everybody in the community is getting the same information, and the more of us that are participating in that, the larger that information base becomes for everybody in the community. And the last thing was consistency of effort. We believe that anything worth really doing in your life is worth doing for the entirety of your life. So if building up this community and moving it forward for all of the citizens who live here is really important to us, then we won't stop this effort. And with all the great people in this room, I don't see that happening. And one more thing, if I may. I tend to use my social media platforms as a way of celebrating this city and saying, hey, here's what's going on here. So to that end, Mayor, could I take a selfie with you and all of you with your permission? Oh, yeah. All right, come on up. I know this seems terribly gratuitous, and it slightly is, but I promise you that there will be people who ask me about this strategic planning session because of it. Come on over. Everybody say, go Peoria! Thank you.
Thank you, Yvonne. Well, everybody that participated in business support, attraction, and retention, please stand. Thank you for your great work. Thank you. Thank you, ladies. Infrastructure improvement. Just come on up here. Okay, here's Antoine.
Good morning, everyone. The good news is I'm not imagining you in your underwear. So one of the main things that we realized, Mr. Powers, infrastructure is everything. It's within everything. I mean, we heard it from everyone who spoke almost today, infrastructure, whether it's walkability, grass, small things like that. Some of the most serious issues facing Peoria when it comes to infrastructure is, of course, funding, long-term funding. Where will we get the funding? How will we sustain the funding? Community involvement and transparency. You know, how can we get the community to want to engage in building a better Peoria? Also, updating the comprehensive plan. We need a new vision for the city. We need something for us to be excited about. Some of the nature of these issues are prioritizing what's most important. Competition of funds. Where are the funds being allocated? Who's pulling here? Who's forcing there? Competition of the funds. And changing the nature of Peoria, the narrative that people have for Peoria when they say, oh, Peoria doesn't have this, Peoria is born this, when it's in fact not true. Other things like legacy in Peoria. We have to build a stronger sense of pride. Major themes that we all seem to share throughout this discussion is generational. A lot of these things that we see, that we're talking about here today, is going to affect the generations to come. So we have to step outside of the mindset of now, but the generations to come. Another theme of discussion is taking care of what we have now. The things that we have now, they are great. They have great bones. All we have to do is put more into them, and we'll see those things thrive. And one of the last themes, but not the least, no one left behind. We don't want to leave any community behind. We don't want to leave any section behind. We all have to be united. We have to be locked together. Unity is another thing that we all spoke about here today. Unity, we have to be in one step. Some of the ideas that seem promising is community participation. When I take a look out here and I see this big, beautiful crowd, that's community participation from leaders just like you. Transparency for everyone to be able to see what they're participating in and be taking a sense of pride. Innovation, reimagine, new thoughts. There are so many ideas out there, and some can be implemented. Some of the strengths that Peoria has is a lot of these structures and roads, and they have good bones. We have short-term funding that's available. Some of the weakness is lack of interest from the community. Although we are here, but there are some who aren't here or who don't even know that this is going on. So we need to build up that interest from the community. And there is seems to be a bridge and a gap between the politics and common practices. We need to start some new practices, some new ideas, some new thoughts. Peoria is full of opportunities, jobs, excitement, fun. Peoria is a great place. Some of those threats that we see possibly happening with Peoria is the lack of community. We have a great sense of community now, but if we drop the ball, we can get further and further apart. So I just like to say, everyone stick together and lock arms and unify. Thank you.
Thank you, Antoine. Next we have Steve.
All right. Well, thank you. And like all, I had a great team to work with. And so I'll hit on some of the common themes that we've heard in other discussion. So some of our challenges, lack of transparency was one that came up. I think there's a lot of great things the city is doing. The Complete Streets program, for example, is out there. I think among our team, weren't many of us actually knew that. So transparency of what we're doing and what we're not doing. Lack of engagement in some of the target neighborhoods. So again, on infrastructure, we look at communities, the walkability, the roads. And we know there's a challenge to get some of the local communities to sit down together and commit and be part of it. Lack of funds is always the obvious thing in infrastructure, right? We have motor fuel tax for roads. We have some grants. We need to go get more of those grant funds where possible. Sometimes we need to look at our current staff and capability, and maybe do we need more staff and ability to go after grants and also implement and use the funds that we can access from federal or state. Lack of continuity, again, community infrastructure. Continuity is walkability, streets, infrastructure, broadband, roads, bike paths, and then the lack of amenities. We have several communities that have a lack of amenities. There's the theme in some communities of the food desert, and I'll speak to that as part of our team discussion. The strengths, we have a lot of great strengths, and you heard that from other groups. Generous, strong community, philanthropic. We have great leaders, talented people. You see here 400 and some people that came for 2 days to give their time and their talent. We need to leverage that. We need to leverage those innovative ideas. We're a great community. Let's build on it. We have diversity, both of people and neighborhoods, so each neighborhood has its own diversity. Let's build on that strength. Let's not try to change it, build it, make it stronger. We also have destinations. We have a lot of great destinations. We need to talk about, get out and communicate, make sure people understand and connect to it, connect the dots, bring people to those destinations and do that last mile. Major themes. Our team came up with a kind of a topic called quality of life infrastructure. If you think about that for a second, it's all about the quality of life that we as citizens, residents, and all of our fellow residents have. We want a good quality of life. We want to be safe. We need nutrition. We need education. We need jobs. We need a good neighborhood that's collaborative, working together. We need increased connectivity. One of the things for quality of life is walkability paths, connect neighborhoods to each other. There's also, I would be remiss if I didn't talk about roads, because infrastructure, everyone thinks of roads. Broadband we spoke of, and we'll have a comment here in the next comment around broadband. Transparency and engagement is another theme. Bring everyone together, just as we're doing here, but as I think the next step of this group is to go out to communities and sit down with neighborhoods and communities and pull them together, get their direct input. And I know that's a big challenge, to bring communities together and to engage. In messaging and storytelling, I think Yvonne talked about storytelling, messaging, if it's through media. Get our message out. Be proud of who we are and what we do. The most promising ideas, obviously connecting some of our infrastructure and roads. The one topic that we did dig into a little bit was, let's look at some of the new technology and some of the challenges we have. So we talk about the access to food and groceries. And we took that one a little deeper and said, okay, broadband is infrastructure. If we have broadband and we have people have affordable broadband, access, understanding how to use it, why can't we have groceries delivered to communities' neighborhoods? We don't need to build a grocery store. We all know the challenges and the profitability and the cost effectiveness. Think outside the box. Bring the groceries to the people. Similar to what Amazon does with drop boxes, we could have collaborative work with business partners to put grocery drop boxes or refrigerated. People could order, have them delivered to a drop location that's secure to get their groceries when they're available, when they're ready, when they want them. So instead of ordering fast food all the time, they're getting nutritious food, recipes, and those type of things. Connect those dots. You can also do the same with education, online jobs. A lot of neighborhoods, you don't need to travel from here to Pioneer Park to go work. If you have an online job, you can work either at your residence, and we talked about having shared office locations right in your community. Wouldn't it be neat if you have a small shared office with a collaborative room, conference room? People in that community could go there, work at a minimal cost, provide for their family, and keep building that neighborhood and community. But again, broadband and some of those things tie that together in training. So anyway, with that, optimize grant opportunities was kind of our last one. Let's look at ways of grant opportunities and how we can optimize those and bring those federal funds, state level funds in to help fund some of this initiative. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Would everybody who participated in infrastructure improvement please stand? Thank you. Thank you for your great work. Thank you for your patience as we have two groups growing the workforce. Please come forth. Thank you for waiting for these last two presentations and close out. Growing the workforce. Please welcome Gregory.
Well, thank you for having me. Just wanted to get my notes here in front of me so that I'm talking properly. Okay. So it was a privilege to get to know people that I haven't dialogued with, and to see so many people stick around even after overtime. So I'll try to keep my notes here to 5 minutes and go from there. Here we go. So workforce development, there were common themes that I think we've all heard in several areas. And for us, one of the things that was brought up very quickly was, even though in groups and in public settings, there can be a common desire to collaborate and to help each other to grow a strong workforce, the reality is when you're competing against other people for the best folks, is it real genuine collaboration? And that does need to change. There is a reality that if we want what is best for the community, it's not just about what is best for us. We need to change some of that thinking. It's not easy to do. Sorry about that. When it comes to other areas of understanding some of the cultural changes that are going on, how as a employer setting, accommodating the different cultural diversities that are available, there's a reality that even though we want what is best for our own organization, there are some people that think differently and practice different things, and it's not just about what we want, and we need to figure out what strengths others can bring to the table and how we can help understand where weaknesses can be turned into strengths, and this shows in other areas as well. Oh boy, this keeps on going off on me. So, the other challenge is resources. Where do we get our resources? And is there a way that our resources can be centralized? Are we getting the right resources to match the needs that are being present, that are presenting themselves as they do? And that's come up before. How do we do that effectively? That is a challenge. Some of those common things that rose to the surface about how we can develop, or even just those major themes that affect every one of these areas, is education, again, resources, and culture. And within the workforce, having the proper HR practices, the tools for HR, so that they can bring people in properly, onboarding them, instructing them well. The fact is it's tough in a small business. I've had a couple small businesses myself, and I don't mind working for somebody else, okay? The fact is it's so challenging to have some of these tools when you need them, because we only have so much time during the day. But the fact is if we can all go to these common places for the right resources, for developing our HR practices, and even in education, how do we see education? Is it just what is traditional? We don't want to be diverse at the expense of good things that have developed us to where we're at. And that's where ensuring that we hear ideas, not just for those in the middle, but on those that are riding on the fringes, so that we can have free ideas of thought for those that stand on each side, so that we can have safe places to be open and be truly diverse. That's important and invaluable. So in closing, as we work toward strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, every strength and every weakness can be an opportunity for us to see how we can all work together, again, which has already been said enough times, but putting our egos aside, putting what is collectively best for everybody is what has got to be at the forefront. So thank you.
Thank you, Gregory. Now we have Jonathan.
So we spent in our group a lot of time talking about the difference between this generation of workforce versus what we have traditionally been used to. And so one of the things that we talked about was we need to probably do some kind of R&D, some research and development, to try to come up with what exactly motivates this new workforce. Because the only way that we can help to get as much productivity out of our staff and employees in the workforce today is we have to know what motivates them, and that's how we can try to govern what we're going to get out of the productivity from them. And we don't know that right now. You know, a couple of police officers was in our group, and they were saying it used to be overtime and compensation motivated people. Today, that doesn't motivate people. You know, I look at the people that we have working for us, and it's not giving them more money. We have given people more money when they didn't even ask for it. And that wasn't enough. So we have to figure out what is it that's motivating this new workforce, and how can we use that to get more productivity out of the workforce that we're working with. Another thing is we have two different trajectories that we're dealing with when we're talking about growing the workforce in our community. On the one hand, you have the people that already reside here, and that's going to require a different lift than you have with the other trajectory, and that's bringing new talent into our community. And we have to do both of those things simultaneously. Now, working with the homegrown workforce that we have is going to require us to do a lot of mentorship programs. It's going to require us to do a lot of exposing the workforce here to the different opportunities that are available. And then as far as recruiting people from outside of Peoria, is going to take a masterful marketing campaign and a reimagining what Peoria is. The beautiful thing is that a lot of the things that we've heard throughout the course of the day are in many different areas being done. They're just at the inception part of it. Like, you know, Samantha is working with the Peoria Chamber of Commerce and the CEO Council, and they are right now, as we speak, involved in a massive marketing campaign, which is called Choose Greater Peoria. And so what they want to do is to highlight some of the strengths about being in this community, and not only to highlight it to people outside of this community, but to sell it to people in this community. Because a lot of people in our community are not sold on that concept. And so there are so many advantages of being in a small town like Peoria, but with accessibility to 3 major cities 2.5 hours away. And we got Indianapolis, St. Louis, and Chicago in either direction. And if you want that excitement, it's a drive away. But you don't have to deal with trying to find parking every day at home. You don't have to deal with exorbitant home prices in Peoria. You don't have to deal with standing in line waiting an hour to buy groceries. Those are things that are selling points when we're trying to attract new talent into this community. And then we also talked about trying to change what you see physically when you come to this community. I think Nikki and I, through Art Inc. and purchasing the old Greeley School building, is a prime example of what just giving something a facelift will do. And in the 30 seconds that I have left, in conclusion, one of the other things you heard is that there are a lot of silos in our community, and we're already, with the mayor's leadership, creating a program, a software that organizations can use that will point people in the right direction. It's called the IRIS, right, Mayor? And so a lot of the things that we're talking about, thank God, a lot of people in this community have already thought those things, are working towards it, and we just need to keep communicating with each other so that we'll know that these things exist and we can find ways that we can get in and be a part of the growth. Thanks.
Thank you, Jonathan. With everybody that participated in growing the workforce, please stand. Growing the workforce. Thank you. Thank you for your great work. And last but not least, and thank you again for your patience and overtime, City Fiscal, Health, and Financial Future. Please come forth. These are our last presenters. As they come, I want to recognize that Councilman Karen Velpula has joined us today. Councilman. Councilman Chuck Greb is also here. He wasn't here yesterday, but he's here. He had to step out, but we welcome him as well. Okay, ladies. Patricia.
Well, I'm going to try to make this go much longer, but we were dealing with the fiscal responsibility. Our issues that we brought up were the pensions. This was talked about in the beginning of the conference, is how we are behind in paying the pensions and how do we get it forward in doing that. So that should be one of the major priorities in the budget. It might take 2, 4, 5 years, but there's got to be a plan in order to do it. We can't kick it down the road. The other major issue that we came up with 3, the next one was the high real estate taxes. How do we address that? One of the things that we talked about is that the city of Peoria, in their tax bill, is one entity. How do we promote and let people know that we're just one entity on that bill? So I think that is, how do you promote, how do you get that information out, and what those taxes the city of Peoria is collecting, and what are you doing it with those? The other area was low population growth. And I think we talked a little bit about that in all the different groups, is how do we address that in our infrastructure, and how do we bring people to the city and wanting to live here and make this their home. When we talked about the nature of these issues, in the first part of that was the lack of long-term planning. We feel that the city council and the organization needs to look at 5 to 10-year planning strategies. Community engagement. We think this was a great opportunity for all of us to meet. We need to continue doing this. This shouldn't be the first time, it shouldn't be the last time. The other area that we thought was creating the nature of these issues was is branding the Peoria. We need to address that. Maybe we need to look at creating new brands, coming up with a different strategy in doing that, and making sure we're promoting that consistently on every piece of material. Anything we do should have the branding of what that new branding is. And then how do we need to be honest to our community. We need to let them know what our struggles are, what are our pluses, what are our minuses, and how do we get them engaged. The greatest strengths dealing with these is we feel we have a lot of assets within the city of Peoria. We need to highlight them, and we need to better utilize them. Major issues that we discussed overall was the growth and retaining of businesses, diversifying businesses, lack of the success stories. I think we need to promote those businesses and what's going on that's positive within the city. Looking at the rate of return and publishing assumptions. A lot of times we have opportunities within the city in order to invest, making sure that those are what you're looking at has a good rate of return, and then you're letting people know what that is. More transparency, that's been talked about in some of the other groups. Additional to that was ongoing funding for current and future infrastructure. If you build something, you need to make sure in your budget you have the money to maintain it. You can't just you can't walk away, and you cannot maintain the infrastructure that you're building. The fourth question was talking about ideas most promising to make improvements. We felt that honesty about our problems and how do you develop those strategies to solve them. We have to be honest with, I think, from internally, from the city inside, being honest with their elected officials, and elected officials being honest with the public. Taking the initiative to accountability on your own, and getting, like I say before, was the community involvement. Then the last item we talked about was identifying our strengths and weaknesses. Our strengths we felt was the assets that we have in the city that are already here and the people that are living here. We think it's important that we always rise up because we have wonderful people living in the city of Peoria. Our weaknesses, as we mentioned earlier, was our pension programs. We need to address that. Crime, loss of tax revenue, making sure, the issue of branding, that we are who Peoria is. Economic development is huge, lack of perspective and lack of trust. Opportunities is, we felt that you got to solve the problem. We have to find the strategies in order to solve these problems. The last was threats, was continual loss of population. If we don't address these issues financially and looking at each of our departments, is continued loss of population. Financial stability. The community wants to know we are in financial good hands. And the last is we encourage, the public officials to be honest with the community and have the courage to make some of these hard decisions, because they are going to be hard, because it's not just one department. You have 5, 10, 15 departments that they have to balance, and we got to be honest on how we do that. Thank you.
Great job. Thank you. Thank you, Patricia. And now we have Kelsey. Kelsey.
All right, guys, I have the blessing and the curse of going last and talking about finances, so bear with me. My group took a little bit of a different approach. Rather than a SWOT analysis, we thought in terms of short-term, mid-term, and long-term. But the elephant in the room is the pension issue, and I'm not a financial expert, and many in our group were not, but what we thought would be a great first step in that would be developing a subcommittee that could get together with other cities in Illinois that are experiencing that same difficulty, looking forward to their future, and maybe just seeing if getting people in the same room in terms of city councils along with unions could hopefully move that forward in a good direction. So now that that's out of the way, looking at our short-term opportunities, we were really excited about these as a group. The first one that we saw was something that I wasn't super familiar with, called sales tax leakage. So when we have events where people come into the city and they're not charging sales tax, that's a disadvantage to the city compared to if you went and bought something at Bass Pro. Well, that's across the river. Strike that from the record. You went and bought something from somewhere on the Peoria side, and we lost out on the sales tax. So that's just something very tactical that we could put in place, my understanding, short term. Another thing that we wanted to look at is, who's ever heard of business development districts? Anybody? I had not. Okay, some people. So apparently Peoria has one of these, which is pretty crazy for the size city we are, when East Peoria and Peoria Heights both have more than one. You look at somewhere like O'Fallon, they have 4. So those are basically parts of a city that are specifically designated for businesses, and you can charge 1% more sales tax. So we're really in the weeds, but the purpose of that is that it's short term. If city council decided that they wanted to develop 10 new business development districts in Peoria, they could very easily, and we could automatically start generating more revenue. So if you have questions about that, talk to Jeff. Jeff, raise your hand. That was Jeff's idea. Another idea that we all had was just kind of bringing together the marketing minds in Peoria and having some cross-marketing. So imagine a room where the VP of marketing for District 150 was in the same room with someone as the Holt Center, was in the same room with the VP from the Park District, and they met once a month, and they could all come together, share what they're doing that month, or even further down the road, the next 6 months, and cross-market those together. We think that that would really benefit the city, in turn driving revenue, which is the goal. Looking at midterm, we want to make Peoria an experience destination. You know, we already have the Louisville Slugger facility, but Mr. Ruffin over there had the great idea of, what if we had something like that where the Peoria Stadium is currently at? You had 10 basketball courts that could also be multi-purpose for indoor soccer or volleyball tournaments, and we were becoming kind of a mecca for middle and high school sports tournaments. We were also very passionate in our group about spamming Trader Joe's until they bring a Trader Joe's here. But that's just one, thank you, can I get an amen? That is just one example of certain businesses that we see a lack in our city, and if we brought those here, it could drive tourism traffic and in turn drive revenue. Another midterm, checking my time here, another midterm opportunity that we see is the development of this new proton beam for cancer patients at OSF. When I had cancer, I had to live in Chicago for 5 weeks in order to get proton radiation there. So having that in Peoria is going to be amazing. It's going to bring people here, and we want to be hospitable to them when they are here, and in turn drive revenue while they're staying here. Okay, last but not least, looking at long-term, the thing that we saw that could most affect our revenue and our expenses long-term is mental health, believe it or not. If you have a city that's healthy and thriving, other people are going to want to come there. If you have a city that's struggling, everyone's going to be struggling. I was not familiar with this, but certain cities have what's called a 708 board, which is able to determine how some of the sales tax is used specifically towards mental health funding in the city. We apparently don't have one of those, so we could get one. Then 5-10 years down the road, you might have a completely different mental health environment in the city. So yeah, everything long-term begins now, so I'm really appreciative to be here. I admire a lot of you in the room, and since Dozer Park was mentioned earlier, I'm throwing the first pitch on the 10th, and I want to see you guys there.
Thank you, Kelsey. Would everyone who participated in City Fiscal Health and Financial Future please stand? Okay, before you leave, will all of our facilitators please stand and be recognized? Thank you so much for your talent. Thank you, facilitators. Closing us out today will be our Assistant City Manager, Kimberly Richardson. She was also the project manager over this 2-day kickoff event. I shared a vision with her. She executed it perfectly. Congratulations, Kimberly.
Because of that execution and knowing that we are over time, I'm going to be very quick, but I want to share a couple of things with you. We had a couple of conversations about who's not in the room today. Well, we have a plan and a direction how we're moving forward with strategic planning. This is the kickoff. Everyone was invited to be a part of this kickoff. You came to the kickoff, and thank you so much for that. But what we are planning on doing is having a few more community forums, maybe not this large, but we will be having community forums within the next 60 to 90 days. We are asking you to be a part of this, and I'm going to tell you how you can be a part of this. More information is coming. We will be putting together a meeting in the box. That means that you can have facilitated conversations such as today with your groups of friends and colleagues and individuals that you know that may not be very comfortable coming into a government setting, but they want to be a part of the process. So we will be having meeting in the box opportunities for you and other members of the community, both in English and in Spanish, for those individuals who are wanting to participate to provide their feedback, who are not able to take off of work or have childcare or have adequate transportation. We want to go where the people are, but we recognize that we can't do it alone as city staff. So we're going to need your help with that. And then we're going to be at community events, just promoting this, letting people know what the strategic plan is. What is a strategic plan? Why is it not just, fix the issue? So we want to be able to inform and also make sure that we're engaging the community where they're at community events. So we have scheduled that opportunity. I want to bring to you 2 dates that you should save the dates, and this is going to be populated all over the place, so don't worry if you don't have a pen and paper in front of you. But on our first community visioning forum, which is going to be the process for which we are going to be taking the environmental scan that we're currently working on internally, and that's going to also be a part of that visioning forum. That's going to happen July 20th and July 20th and 21st. There will be a virtual option for this. So for individuals who may not be able to be in the area or in town, there will be a virtual option for you to participate. Then we're going to have in September 14th and 15th, we'll be having another community visioning forum, but this one is going to actually be giving you a draft of the strategic plan itself for community feedback. So that's going to happen. Again, this will also have a virtual component to it as well. Those activities will be conducted by our consultant, Barry Dunn, but we will be part of the process of making sure that we have as many voices as part of this process and in the room as possible. Most importantly, I want you to have this. There's a QR code, but there's also a website. You don't have to dig on our city website to find out about the strategic plan. If you go to peoria2023.org, next week we're going to have a live website that's interactive. It's going to have information on how to share your ideas, giving us some priorities, also surveys. This is going to be our hub for all information strategic plan. So this hub, which is going to be, we are powered by Social Pinpoint. This will have all of our documents, including the PowerPoints from this event today, our recordings once they are ready to be published, and any information that we're going to share is going to be on this site. So if you go to peoria2023.org, right now, today, it's just going to take you to our city website, that is our page about the strategic plan, but next week we're going to be having it hosted under this Social Pinpoint, where you will see some of the ideas discussed today already populated there, and for the community to continue the conversations from there. So I appreciate you all taking the time, 6 hours of your time, to have these conversations that is so needed. This is a community-informed process. It is a community-informed process. It is city council-led, but it's a community-informed process, and we want to make sure the community is as engaged and excited about this as I've heard you all have said in the last 2 days. Kick that excitement and momentum forward, and we look forward to have you continue to participate beyond today. So thank you for taking the time, and if you could take your garbage with you, that would be helpful, because we got to turn this room over really quickly for the next group. So thank you again. Have a wonderful evening, and be well.